It is Wednesday, February 20th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very fun Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. Certainly very, very tiring. We were working a little bit from the ground, not stand-up stuff. I'm trying to think of what we were actually doing. It was a really, really tiring day. I mean, I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night, and it wasn't for lack of opportunity. Just had a little trouble getting around to it, you know. Anyway, so the class is pretty good, but I got a lot of other shit in today, so it was like that was like the last bit of energy I really had. And so definitely got it put on me today. But I did try and focus more on just maintaining my defense, and that was one thing is regardless of which one of the people that I was rolling with, I only got submitted once, and a lot of it was sparring. We did a lot of sparring today, and mostly pass and keep the guard. But we were doing a choke from, you know, if you had your opponent within your guard already, and I got into a little habit of grabbing my opponent's sleeve first and pulling their arm straight and then pushing it down toward their hip, and I felt like that gave me really good access to their collar. What I didn't realize is that there are a couple of things that your opponent can do to kind of regain a little bit of control over that arm, and some of them actually negate your forward movement on that. So it was helpful to, you know, find a bad habit, try it out, and find out why it was a bad habit. You know, it was kind of nip that one in the bud, you know. But yeah, definitely some good stuff. I like I said though, I felt like it really gave me a good deep grip on my opponent's collar, because it was a cross grip collar, a cross grip collar choke where you're reaching way back to the back of the collar, right in back of the neck, you know, getting a nice fistful of that, and then holding it tight to your body with your bicep and your lats, and then reaching up over the head onto the shoulder there, the opposite shoulder, and then pulling your opponent in and strangling them. But yeah, so I need to work on that one a lot. You know, no excuses, you know, and I did kind of cardio myself out, and it sucked because the guy that I was rolling with, he's very, very quick, and he's very, very technical. And although he only submitted me once, but just the same, I probably could have avoided it. And he's got this one habit, and I if I could figure out how to take advantage of it most, I could take it away from him really quick, where he likes to go for the collar choke. I mean, if he's got you in his guard, he's got at least one hand on the collar, ready to slam it down and choke you out. And like, regardless of what position you're in, he's trying to set up for that collar choke. And I think it's one of those things where it's like a cat and catnip. You know, he gets that close to it, he has to go for it. And so, like I said, I know one of these days I'm going to figure out how to take advantage of that. I'm going to take it away from him. He's going to be in a little bit of trouble, because, like I said, it's one of those things where he immediately wants to grab onto my collar. I'm like, you know, one of these days, I'm going to figure out how to get around that and get you. I did manage to escape to a half guard with him, and that was challenging enough, honestly. I think I might have passed his guard one time out of like 5 minutes, but I couldn't do the last minute of class. I actually made it one additional minute than we normally go, but we were actually doing 7-minute rounds on the last round, and that was because a couple of us are actually going to a competition in Portland. So, got to kind of bone up, get a little bit over the threshold with regard to cardiovascular capacity. But yeah, so a little bit of collar chokes and also circumvention of them. Now, there was one circumvention that we did not cover, and that's, I personally, I like to get my head on their forearm. You know, so like if somebody's got that cross collar in, right? You know, they got their arm up and they're trying to hold you in. You know, you want to lean back a little bit to where you can do it, but you just tuck your head down. And at first, you know, the forearm might be across your face, and it's not all that comfortable. But if you rotate your head to one side and then down again, put your forehead on their forearm, that'll pin the forearm to their body, and it'll give you just a little bit of an opportunity to maybe like double grab on that arm or something to that effect. But it might be a little bit tough to pull out of it. It's not really the best angle if they still have the collar, you know. But just the same, it does keep them from choking you. And one thing I did do was I started to push on his elbow. You know, as soon as I got my head on his forearm, I grabbed the back of his elbow around the tricep, and I pushed that across the front of his body. Now, how it will work out for somebody who's maybe not as strong as I am, probably not as easy. But I would imagine if you took your palm and had palm up and had your hand like about where your shoulder is, just pushing with your hip, I think you'd be able to pop that elbow enough to where you can straighten it out, maybe get a hold of it with the other arm and pull it tight to the body. And if you can ever get loose of the grip, or if they just disengage it themselves, maybe start going for that arm bar. Anywho, I want to go ahead and throw down into some music. As far as what we're going to cover today, as usual, completely up in the air. But I did see something on my Twitter feed, and I remember the time I saw Ministry, and also I think 2 of the times I saw Prong. A particular gentleman was playing drums for them, for both bands, as a matter of fact, and that was Aaron Rossi. I saw him on Twitter. He had posted Punch in the Face and also Power of the Damager, and those were both albums that he had done drums for. And so, as promised, I'm going to go ahead and throw down Punch in the Face for our first dance of the evening. If I can find the damn thing. Oh, where is it? No. There it is. Punch in the Face. First dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Pantera with Cowboys from Hell. Yeah. And so as far as what we're going to get into today, just read my Twitter feed here, and it seems Bitfinex is having some issues here. According to a tweet by Spoofy McSpoofface here, it says, Bitfinex has a nice trading platform and everything seems to work normally, right up until you try to withdraw actual money. The great purge of Bitfinex customers continues. And let's see here. It says, I guess Acettle had an issue. It says, any issues with USD withdrawals lately? I'm waiting 14 days on sending status and 19 days since I initiated the withdrawal. Holy shit. That's a long time. Let's see. Alexis W says, ticket was already opened when it hit 10 days on sending status, which is already beyond your agreed standard service level. Yeah, that's really interesting here. Let's see, more Bitfinex traders getting axed for requesting fiat funds. Fraudsters empty Bitfinex. He put mount in there for MT for mount, for Mount Gox. And this one is another picture of another message, I guess it was by Ash Strong, says, I initiated USD withdrawal on January 30th and the fund never arrived at my account. Just checking my account and it seems my withdrawal was canceled? Man, that's interesting. I mean, I don't like fudding anything like that, but Bitfinex has always been a concern, mostly because it's one of the main onboarding points for Tether. You know, where Tether was originally available from was Bitfinex. And there's always been some questions because there's business relationships between Bitfinex and Tether, as well as EOS, and I think there's another one out there too. I mean, like, all of them have been hacked. All of them have lost significant amounts of money. And, due to, I think there was some security issues or some hack issues. Oh, BitThumb. That was another one. And BitThumb is the most concerning to me because they actually had several warnings from I guess it was the Japanese version of SEC or something like that, where they were advised multiple times to upgrade their security protocols. They did not, after 2 warnings, and got hacked. Big fucking surprise there, right? Give me a fucking break. Anyway, it seems that there might be some concerning goings on with Bitfinex, and if so, that would be kind of significant, I think. You know, I mean, especially given how much volume they supposedly deal with. And having big question marks like that in the market is kind of non-productive, you know? Because it's like, once you hear about something like that, you're like, oh, well, okay, what other shoes are there out there to drop? You know, and if you're a new and especially speculative investor, you're really judging your points of entry and what you're intending to invest in very closely, and so those would just put up red flags for anybody who's had any duration of experience in this space. And you should. I mean, if there's ever an issue with getting your transactions taken care of through your exchange, it's usually a good sign that there's something wrong or they're doing something to fix something else. I mean, it happens that, you know, they have security downtimes and so on and so forth, because these markets are open 24/7. So I mean, you know, if there's any kind of disruption or whatever, usually it's because, you know, there's an actual disruption, you know, but it's not like a hacker or something like that, you know, like one of their servers goes down or something to that effect. And, you know, they usually recover really quickly. And I'm using like Bittrex as an example there. Most of the time, and I've noticed this, is that most of the time when people have issues at Bittrex, it's because they're not actually reading the notifications that they get from Bittrex. You know, it's like they submit a ticket, they'll get an automatic response telling them what to do. You know, various things that, you know, these are the things that you can do to, you know, help us along, you know, provide us with this information, and this information, you know, and they can usually straighten it out really quickly. And the thing that you don't want to do, though, is like open multiple requests, customer service requests, because they look at that and they're like, dude, there's like 8 billion of these. How is this guy like? Is this legitimate, or is this, you know, some fucking bot plaguing us or something? So yeah, you got to listen to them, but usually that helps things get resolved fairly quickly. And speaking of security, I got this article here on SECjuice.com. Researcher assaulted by a vendor after disclosing a vulnerability. This is on February 5th, 2019. A little bit old, but it's right up our alley. Following a serious vulnerability disclosure affecting casinos globally, an executive of casino technology vendor Attrient has allegedly assaulted the security researcher who disclosed the vulnerability at the ICE conference in London. This is the story of a vulnerability disclosure gone bad, one involving the FBI, a vendor with a global customer base of casinos, and a severe security vulnerability which has gone unresolved for 4 months without being properly addressed. Our story begins with 2 white hat security researchers, Dylan and Me9187, who were on a showdown safari back in September when they noticed what looked like a casino player reward server with no authentication exposed to the public internet. After a little more investigation by the researchers, it became obvious that the server was supporting player reward kiosks in different casinos all over Las Vegas. These kiosks were made by a vendor called Attrient, who market them as a, quote, power kiosk marketing platform and sell them to casinos globally, who then use these kiosks to engage their casino customers with a loyalty reward program. The kiosks provide loyal casino customers with a user interface they can use to register their purchases and spending at the casino, receiving loyalty bonuses in return. Bonuses can include theater and show tickets, comped hotel rooms, entries into cash prize draws, and anything the casino wants to use as a part of their reward program, including offering cash back on purchases in some casino locations. Casinos who use these kiosks include Hard Rock and Caesars. The researchers told me that these kiosks are deployed in casinos across the country. These kiosks and the back-end server communicate the personal details of their users and send data like driver's license scans used for enrollment, user home addresses, and contact details, as well as details about their activity, unencrypted over publicly accessible internet. When the researcher discovered that the unauthenticated reward server was directly connected to the kiosks on the casino floor, they realized that the API the kiosks used was wide open and extremely vulnerable to criminal abuse. The researcher told me that every single kiosk was calling home to the server in plain text, and all data sent from the kiosks to the server clearly visible on the network. There was no SSL protection. The API is wide open and vulnerable to abuse, and it is possible to identify the kiosks by their MAC addresses and use the unsecured API to change details, track users, and credit to user accounts, and even spin up a kiosk on a virtual machine in order to have your own personal kiosk at home. Attrient were not segregating these kiosks into VLANs. Their FTP access was wide open and unencrypted, and all of this was discovered using the Showdown search engine. All of it was publicly visible to anyone on the internet who knew where to look. Attrient is a market leader in selling these loyalty kiosks to casinos, and because these kiosks have been sold to casinos all over Las Vegas, the United States, via their partnership with Konami, to casinos all over the world. Considering that Attrient COO Jesse Gill said in the media recently that they, quote, don't have a different version for different operators. We integrate all functions to a single product. There is a very high likelihood that this vulnerability affects all of their customers, including their white label partners Konami, who rebranded Attrient's tech for sale to their own customers. The security researchers who first discovered this vulnerability, Dylan and Me9187, told me that the vulnerability was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to sloppy security practices at Attrient. They saw casino Wi-Fi network passwords stored in plain text, user personal data stored in plain text, and no attempt to secure anything. They even found Atrium's third-party contractors based in India posting Atrium's source code on GitHub and asking Stack Overflow questions about it, an indicator which made it obvious that the researchers that security was not being taken seriously. It was clear to the security researchers that Atrium had outsourced their development to India, where a significant amount of their services were being hosted, including their FTP, kiosk management services, and development servers. It was obvious to the security researchers that the subcontractors were not taking even basic security steps to secure any of this infrastructure from being discovered on the open internet. Reporting the vulnerability. The security researchers acted in good faith, followed responsible disclosure best practices, and tried to directly contact Atrium to report the vulnerability and make them aware of how serious a problem this was. For a company like Atrium with a global customer base and a record of talking about how secure their systems were, you would expect them to respond immediately. Unfortunately, Atrium completely ignored repeated emails to multiple executives and members of the Atrium team. The researchers even left messages with their contact details on the FTP servers for the admins to see, warning them about the vulnerability. They made every effort to get in touch with the vendor and responsibly disclose, but they were ignored. Atrium completely ignored the researchers, but despite following them on LinkedIn and Twitter, they clearly had no interest in communicating with the researchers. The researchers then reached out to me, asked for my help in contacting Atrium, and asked me to tweet out about the vulnerability on Twitter, so I helped them. Enter the FBI. When I sent out the tweet reporting that I was working on a story about the vulnerability, one which affected casinos all over Las Vegas, the tweet was noticed by the FBI's Cyber Fusion Unit, who then reached out to me for a conversation. This particular FBI division worked towards connecting security researchers to vendors when vulnerabilities had been discovered, particularly in cases where the vulnerability is serious and the researchers are being ignored by their vendors. I was asked by the FBI to put together a call with the researchers who wanted to act in good faith, agreed to join the call. They were scared. It was the FBI after all. In general, security researchers tend to be wary of the feds, but they agreed to talk to them. On the call, the researchers thoroughly briefed the FBI on what they had found and the attempts they had made to contact Atrium. The FBI sprung to action and set up a call for the next day between Atrium and the security researchers so we could get on the phone together and make sure Atrium properly understood how serious the vulnerability was. Everyone involved was focused on remediation. Now the FBI was involved. Atrium would have to take the vulnerability disclosure seriously. It gave us hope that the vulnerability would be quickly remediated. I am pleased to report that the FBI did the right thing. Their sole interest was in resolving what they considered to be a serious vulnerability, and at no time did the FBI lay any blame at the feet of the researchers or accuse them of anything. There is a lot of mistrust in the InfoSec space when it comes to the FBI, but this particular unit had the right attitude, knew their InfoSec, and wanted to help the researchers. Let's see. Update call recording HTTPS day after exploit.com Skype 1.mp4. Apparently there's an MP4 file on here for you to, I guess, view. I'm assuming it's an actual... It might be an audio file, but I didn't click on it. Anyway, continuing on. The above call recording of the initial FBI conversation was added to this article on February 7th, 2019, after it became available in this article from CBR Online. The vendor call. The next day, I joined the vendor call with the FBI and the security researchers. Atriant was represented by Jesse Gill, their COO, and another member of the staff. When the call started and everyone had been introduced, the floor was handed over to the security researchers. The researchers explained in simple terms that the kiosks and supporting infrastructure was wide open, that players' credit could be manipulated, that users' personal data, including driver's license scans, were exposed to the public internet, and that you could enter casino cash prize draws with as many entries as you wanted in order to win them, all without Atriant or their developers and subcontractors noticing. They clearly explained to Atriant how the risk of abuse was extremely high because there was no way to differentiate legit calls from the malicious API calls in the Atriant backend system, leaving it wide open to malicious exploitation by the criminals. Atriant's COO, Jesse Gill, asked what steps they could take to secure these services, and the researchers advised them of the urgent actions they needed to take to secure their infrastructure. In response to this, Jesse said, quote, "The information you have shared with us is fantastic. We're really impressed by what you have done here, and we would like to actually own this information. How do we make that happen?" And invited the researchers to a private conversation to discuss that with them. At the end of the call, the FBI asked Atriant if they had properly notified their customers of this breach and vulnerability in their systems. Their COO, Jesse, quickly replied, quote, "Let's talk about this offline," immediately closing down the question. And apparently there's another call here. The above call recording of the initial vendor conversation was added to the article. Oh, okay, it's the same thing. The bug bounty call. I was not privy to this call, but I have been told by the researchers that Jesse Gill promised them a bug bounty of $60,000 and asked them to keep the incident quiet until their lawyers could draw up an NDA and legal agreement for them to sign. As far as the researchers were concerned, Atriant was dealing with this in the right way, moving to secure their services, reward the researchers who reported the vulnerability with a bounty, and instructing their legal team to draw up the paperwork to cover the engagement. The researchers, of course, were absolutely thrilled by this. They were both young, and it was a lot of money. Jesse Gill promised the researchers that lawyers would be in touch and send them those agreements, a promise that he made again and again for months. The runaround. From that point on, Atriant led the researchers around by the nose with the promise of money and gave them the runaround. The researchers also tell me that Atriant have made no real effort to secure their services, but did hide some servers from Shodan's view and take the dev servers in India offline for a short time. It became clear over 4 months that no legal paperwork or bug bounty was forthcoming, and Atriant did not at any time ask the researchers to sign an NDA. It also became clear that to the researchers that Atriant had made no significant changes to their security policies or the security of their services in that time frame. The security researchers were given the runaround for 4 months, during which time they were promised a bug bounty and the vulnerability would be resolved. The ICE Conference Assault. Almost 4 months after the initial disclosure to Atriant, the security researchers learned that the Atriant CEO, Sam Atisha, had big plans for the ICE conference in London, where the security researchers are based. Sam Atisha had planned to speak at the conference about the new facial recognition feature in their kiosks that scanned users' faces, uploaded the biometric data to their servers, allowing casino customers to use their kiosks without swiping their membership cards. This alarmed the researchers, who quite rightly identified the facial scans as a serious privacy risk for the users, especially if the back-end infrastructure was not properly secured, further compounding the existing security problems Atriant had. They went along to ICE as registered attendees and tried to meet with Atriant COO Jesse Gill, who they had been talking to for the previous 4 months, and Atriant CEO Sam Atisha, in order to raise these concerns and look them in the eye. When one of the security researchers, Dylan Wheeler, approached COO Jesse Gill and introduced himself as the researcher who Jesse had been dealing with, Jesse suddenly lunged at the researcher and violently grabbed him by his clothes on his chest before tearing his attendee badge away from him, telling the researcher that he didn't need it anymore and that he would keep hold of it. The whole incident was witnessed by multiple people, including Atriant CEO Sam Atisha, who said nothing throughout the whole incident. The researcher started to video the incident on his phone, and as soon as Jesse released him, you can see the video below. Jesse threatening the researcher with Scotland Yard before then denying that he knew him when he knew exactly who the security researcher was. We have partial video of the incident below, and I have requested the CCTV video recordings of the exhibition hall from the ICE conference organizers. The security researcher has since reported the assault to the London Metropolitan Police, who are working with conference organizers on this incident. Dan Stone, the head of marketing for the ICE conference, told me, quote, "We take the safety of all our visitors to ICE extremely seriously. We've reported the matter to the on-site security team, and they are looking into the incident and will liaise with the police as required." The aftermath. I have reached out to Atriant, calling COO Jesse Gill personally to invite him to comment on the unresolved security vulnerabilities at Atriant, his assault on the security researcher, or anything else he wanted to say, but he hung up the phone on me. I am reaching out to a number of Atriant customers, Caesars Entertainment and Hard Rock International, to see if they have been notified of this security vulnerability. Update. Legal threats possibly issued. I received a strange email from Jesse Gill in response to publishing this story. I have pasted it below so you can see it. I'm not entirely sure if they are naming me as a co-conspirator. It looks like it was CC'd and not really addressed to me directly. The email is not actually addressed to either of the security researchers and does not name them. The source of this text is unclear, but it appears to have been cut and pasted from somewhere and had the customary Dear John part excluded. And let's read this bad boy. Let's see here. We write further to your email earlier today, and following your co-conspirators' appearance at our company stand at the ICE Trade Fair in London, making certain statements regarding the security of our systems. You and your colleagues were responsible for unauthorized hacking of our demo platform in November of 2018, and as a result, came into the possession of certain proprietary information of ours and our customers. The quote, confidential information. You and your co-conspirators demanded money from us in return of the confidential information. We are not prepared to recompense you for carrying out illegal activities and do not respond to threats. As you are aware, we contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation regarding your illegal activities in November last year and are now in contact with the relevant authorities in the United Kingdom, Europe, and Australia. We require you to immediately, quote, cease all further threats to us and our employees, representatives, customers, and advisors. Return all copies of the confidential information in your possession or control. Identify where any of the confidential information is stored in an electronic format, whether stored on a device or a storage medium in your possession or control, or on a remote server or cloud storage facility. Take all steps necessary to ensure that the electronic storage of that confidential information is completely and irrevocably erased and destroyed, including all copies and backups and any transitory or temporary copies made, such that no person can access the confidential information or any information contained therein. You must not publish any of the confidential information or any information in relation to the unauthorized hacking or otherwise make such confidential information or information available to the public. Oh, too fucking bad. Please confirm by return and no later than 9 a.m. UK time tomorrow morning that you have and will comply with the contents of this communication. We are taking legal advice in respect of the actions we are entitled to pursue against you and your co-conspirators in both civil and criminal proceedings. In the meantime, reserve all our rights in this regard. What you may feel has an impact on Atriant or its clients are based on fiction. Okay, interesting. Now, this has been exposed to the cold hard light of day. They seem to have knee-jerked out a blustery legal threat. Rest assured, dear reader, your writer was nowhere near any of this technically. I recorded this story as it unfolded and truthfully told it. The security researchers tell me that they have recorded every conversation and kept an accurate timeline of events pegged to specific communications. You can stand on my word when I tell you that there are no bad actors at SEC Juice and that the security researchers acted in good faith throughout the last few months. Neither C-Juice nor the security researchers have received a formal legal notice from anyone who looks like a legal representative of Atriant or a lawyer. Update. Atriant issued a statement and quickly withdrew it. Following the furor on social media, Atriant tweeted out a statement that they have since deleted when new evidence in this article, and there's a link here in this article, came to light contradicting their claims. Journalist Dan Gooden asked them why they deleted their statement. Let's see here. The PR person replied, "We are formatting the statement for Twitter." That's funny. Their statement was online until this article from Ed Target of CBR Online was published, containing audio recordings of the calls with the FBI and Atriant, who contradicted the claims made by Atriant in their statement. Below is a screenshot of the statement that Atriant deleted shortly after posting them on Twitter. And here it is. Atriant says, "We have become aware of false claims regarding a security vulnerability relating to one of our products and an alleged assault. In November 2018, one of our product sales websites was the subject to a brute force attack and on a demo server which contained no client personal data. Number 2, the extent of the attack identified demo sites that our sales department engaged. We were subsequently contracted by a group. This included an individual who identified himself as Dylan English, which we now know to be an alias. Somebody of SEC Juice, and an individual who refused to identify himself by name. Shortly after being contacted, it became apparent that there was a financial motive for not publicizing the allegations. The FBI is aware of this group. On February 6, 2019, we received an unscheduled visit to the Atriant stand at the ICE conference in London from one of the security researchers. He was wearing a badge which identified him as something, it's blocked out here, which we believe to be his real name. Atriant. After being informed that Atriant would not pay any money, he made another false accusation, this time of assault, which an Excel Convention Center investigation has found to be baseless. The matter is now in the hands of the company's legal advisors and law enforcement. It would therefore not be appropriate to comment any further. Statement from ICE London, 6 February 2019. ICE takes the safety and security of all attendees at our event extremely seriously. We were made aware of an alleged assault on Tuesday, 5th February 2019 on the show floor. Our security team began an investigation and made contact with the police, citing a crime reference number provided by a third party who, while not involved in the alleged incident, raised this matter with us. The police have been unable to verify the reference number provided and have confirmed that they have not received a report of the alleged incident. Our security team has also reviewed the available CCTV footage, which does not corroborate the allegations. As such, we are not investigating this matter any further at this time. And Dylan responds, make the CCTV available then. And then Daniel says, well, read and weep, I guess. And, I guess there's another tweet to that. Security researcher alleges assault by casino operator. Atriant deleted the tweets after the CBR Online article, and its recordings of the conversations contradicted their claims in 4 ways. The first Atriant claim to be contradicted was their initial claim about a brute force attack on a demo server. It is clear from the conversation recordings with the FBI and researchers that this was false, and that they were very aware of the extent of the security vulnerability. The second Atriant claim to be contradicted was their claim that the FBI were aware of the group, although I think perhaps that they were being deliberately misleading with their words rather than untruthful. The FBI are indeed aware of the group, primarily because, as the recorded conversations show, the FBI and the security researchers had engaged with each other before Atriant spoke to them. The third Atriant claim to be contradicted was their claim that the police had been unable to verify the incident and confirmed that they had not received a report of the incident. The claim proved to be false when a Metropolitan Police spokesperson said by email to journalist Ed Target, quote, "We can confirm that police received a telephone report of an altercation at Excel, Western Gateway, Newham, where a 23-year-old male was allegedly assaulted by a second male who took the victim's event lanyard. No injuries, no arrests. Officers from Newham Police investigate. Inquiries continue." The fourth and final Atriant claim to be contradicted was that they reviewed the CCTV footage and deemed that it does not corroborate the allegations. I have written to the ICE team for clarification on the CCTV footage because it is unknown if this footage even exists, and if they have indeed provided this footage to Atriant. I have been told by other journalists that ICE has told them that there was no CCTV footage of the part of the exhibition hall where Atriant's stand was located. In order to confirm that this is true, I have asked a few people to head down to the conference and scout out the CCTV field of vision in that area, and will report back on that. Undoubtedly, footage of the incident is hugely important to this story. The original video footage recorded by Dylan Wheeler does not begin until after the alleged assault, so ICE releasing the footage would be helpful in establishing the truth. I asked security researcher Dylan Wheeler to comment on the claims made by Atriant in their now deleted tweets, and he replied, quote, "I am unable to comment on their deleted statement posted on Twitter at this time, as we are openly engaged with our legal team regarding this incident." The security researchers involved in this incident are working with lawyers on the potential libelous claims Atriant has made and deleted. It is worth noting that despite the strange legal notice Jesse sent to SEC Jews and the researchers by mail, which did not address or name anyone specifically, and the bizarre claims Atriant made in their Twitter statement. Neither SEC Juice nor the researchers have any official legal communication from Atriant's legal team. Update. Original call recordings. Below are the original call recordings taken from the CBR Online article of the initial call myself and the security researchers had with the FBI, and the second call that the FBI set up the next day for the researchers to talk to Atriant. And they've got 2 links here for you to check that out. I did not publish these call recordings to protect the privacy of those involved in the conversations, but when it became clear that Atriant were doubling down on their efforts to condemn the researchers and CBR published them first, it became a moot point. So, I have included them here in the article for your convenience. I will keep you updated on as this story progresses and update this article with any news. Well, I'm going to give you my ideas here. For one, I believe this is a case where basically the security researchers happened upon Atriant's like real purpose, which was exposing the information of the customers of the casinos, specifically for the gleaning and gathering. It's much easier to gather it and glean it if it's in plain text to begin with. That's why they didn't bother encoding it, or encrypting it rather. So yeah, basically, I think they were basically using their kiosks as receiving points for people's data. You know, and who better to get information on than people that have enough money to go to casinos, right? Because then you know who to rob. You know all their information. You probably have their fucking routing number from some credit card they entered with one of the hotels. And I wouldn't doubt, because there were hotel-related rewards being issued by this kiosk, that they are in fact tied into the hotel's systems. And it's kind of funny because it seems like this is a progressing thing, that if you do any kind of travel, your information was probably gathered in the Marriott hack that affected like 800 million people. 800 million people. That's damn near an eighth of the fucking planet's population. I mean, I'm amazed that I'm not hearing that on like CNN. Why am I not hearing about that shit on CNN? Why am I not hearing about this shit on CNN? As far as I'm concerned, like I said, this Atriant, their primary thing is either A, they're using the system to steal people's information, specifically for monetization on the black web or something like that, or they're using it for fraudulent purposes, charging things they shouldn't on the credit card and so on and so forth. I mean, because they have full monitoring capability of the customer's data. So if the customer makes a purchase or something like that, they know where they're at. They know where the transaction is taking place. They probably have their own IDs for all of their kiosks, of course, and so they know exactly where you made the purchase, what you purchased, so on and so forth. So, associating some bullshit charge in there that, they didn't do anything to deserve because you didn't actually buy anything would probably be relatively easy. And it even mentions in this article that manipulation of the data is certainly possible. But the bigger concern, I think, is the fact that it was open. See, if I were these security researchers, what I would have been doing afterward is finding out who is monitoring the information and where is it going. If you can see so much of the network as they were saying that they can, you can probably see where the information is going. You could probably see exactly what it's being used for. Where it is being monetized, if it is being monetized, or what it's being used for. And I personally would have been investigating that before I reported jack shit to anybody. Because then they could have gone to the FBI and said, look, okay, not only did we find this vulnerability and we exploited it, but we also found out exactly what they're doing with the data. And I would wager that's why they were assaulted, is that this shit is by design. It's open like this by design. That's why they haven't done anything to resolve it. They didn't want it known. The fact that they interacted at all with the FBI. And I would wager that there's some sort of issue with regard to legal jurisdiction of the persons and the police agencies involved in investigating this case. That they're counting on the ability to stay beyond the reach of police or other law enforcement agencies, either by being able to buy them off because they got a shit ton of money. I mean, shit, their fucking client base consists of casinos, So, they obviously have a little bit of money, right? Buying people off. And the thing about getting the guy's badge, okay, that's really important, I think, because they would have his real identification. He had to disclose that to get the badge, right? So, I mean, they could easily be using that as information to gather, using it to gather information on him to maybe make him go away or something like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, this thing stinks to high hell to me. I don't believe that anything has those kind of vulnerabilities in it in the digital age, not this far into the digital internet age, without intent. It's like the SWIFT system. It's global, right? But because of like disparate jurisdictions that are, don't have really good connections or whatever, even in the 21st century, they lose about 35% of all the fucking transactions. They fail. And so they have to reissue them or whatever. Nothing fails 35% of the time in the 21st century unless it's designed to. And this shit about them storing customer data in plain text, nobody does that without an intent behind it. It's either to make it easier for their systems to disseminate because they're running low quality hardware and it's not really capable of doing really heavy end shit, or it's by intent. It's clear. It's open for them to just grab the shit and run. So yeah, like I said, it's probably just something that they have systems remotely that are attached via the API, that they're able to manipulate the data as much as they want and give themselves extra money, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that these security researchers unwittingly came upon their little scam. And that's why they're acting aggressively and not following through on either correcting the issue or compensating these guys for spawning a vulnerability that's going to cost people a lot of fucking money. That's about as plain as I can make it there. But yeah, I don't think anybody is, that complacent about security, unless of course they intend to be, that it, because it has a purpose, it serves an end for them. And I know that's a hell of an accusation to throw out there, but honestly I don't feel too good about people that when they're notified about a significant security vulnerability that affects the finances and identities of all of the customers of these casinos worldwide, and not only doesn't resolve it, but doesn't follow through on promises that they made to the researchers in the presence of the FBI. I'm sorry. It's obvious that you're probably a criminal activity, and that's why you're acting the way you are. So yeah, don't go to a casino that uses Atriant. Don't use their systems. Pay in cash everywhere you can. That's about the best I can tell you. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it back down into some music. And what specifically to start this little music break off with? Well, I've been wanting to play this one song, and it's been going through my head like all day long. And let me see if I can find it. And of course, it's the one that isn't actually available for us. So here it is. Prong, ruining lives, here on Coin Metal. And that was Machine Head with Wolves. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into next, I dug up this one on Twitter, and it happened to involve the FBI, so I figured it was just in line with what we were talking about earlier. This one's on newsbtc.com. FBI seeks to speak with BitConnect victims as part of investigation. This is by Rick D., February 20th, 2019 at 11 p.m. No indication of time zone, but yes, penis. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation is looking to speak to those investors burned by what has perhaps become the best-known scam in cryptocurrency history, BitConnect. The word BitConnect is now synonymous with scams targeting the cryptocurrency community. It was not only one of the more brazen efforts, but also the most successful, creating many victims after its collapse. Could the end of BitConnect's story finally be in sight? BitConnect BCC was first launched by an initial coin offering ICO in December 2016. The project purported to be part of open source cryptocurrency and part high-yield investment scheme. However, this multi-tiered marketing strategy caused many to call it out early as a Ponzi scheme. Myself included, by the way. The company claimed to generate a massive 40% return for its largest investors through its lending platform. Additionally, a unique trading bot would multiply those Bitcoin investments made into BitConnect, or so it was claimed. The profit-hungry environment of 2017, BitConnect attracted many investors. BCC tokens even managed to get into the top 20 coins listed on CoinMarketCap before the whole pyramid came crashing down. In January 2018, BitConnect announced that it was shutting its lending and exchange platform down via its now defunct website. This caused the price of BCC token to plummet. Let's see here. According to the Next Web, the official reason given for the abrupt decision to cease business was, quote, bad press. However, most of this was caused by a list of legal troubles from several different jurisdictions, themselves a direct response to the legitimacy of the claims made about the profitability of the scheme. Over a year after BitConnect shut down, the FBI is finally doing a thorough investigation into those behind the scam. According to a post on the government organization's official website, those who invested in BitConnect are encouraged to contact the government investigation organization with regards to their involvement. In addition to generic contact details, the questionnaire requests that victims of the scam answer some questions specific to their investment in BitConnect. They include how they heard about it, how much was invested in the scheme, and their account details at BitConnect. The full scope of the investigation into the scam is unknown for now. However, some are expecting the FBI to go after more than just the top brass at BitConnect. Quote, shit just got real when it comes to BitConnect. Now it's full-blown criminal case building, so no longer just civil. YouTube promoters and bloggers who shilled this Ponzi will finally get made examples of through criminal prosecution by the FBI. Cybercrime, and I guess it gives us another link to this. And this is by Digital Forensics Indonesia on February 20th, 2019. Of course, BitConnect's sudden rise through 2017 was aided by many cryptocurrency influencers. YouTube channels showed the project to their followers, along with an army of promoters paid by BitConnect to hawk the, quote, investment opportunity across social media. Some of those singing its praises have since disappeared. The whereabouts of others is reported in the following video. Whether the investigation will target those shilling BCC to their followers remains to be seen at this early staff. However, if you got involved in BitConnect as investor, you can find the FBI questionnaire here. And we're going to click on it. Just to do it. And so, BitConnect. I don't know how people did not see that one coming as a scam. I mean, there are several warning signs about investments in cryptocurrencies. But one thing I'd like people to keep in mind about BitConnect and the way that social media was used specifically with regard to it. Okay, they did active blocking too, where if there were people that were talking down BitConnect, they would block them so they didn't show up in BitConnect's thread. And so that's one of the tactics that we've seen others employ on Twitter. And when you're looking for whether or not something is a scam, you have to study the details of how these people operate. Because a lot of times you will see the same tactics being used across different social media scales, such as like Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, YouTube, so on and so forth. People purposely downvoting videos and so on, specifically to cause them to fall out of casual circulation and recommendation. And so, when you're considering where you want to put your money and what kind of projects that you want to invest in, it is incumbent upon you to study how the animal operates. How do they deal with criticism? How do they address it? If they do so openly and casually on open social media, you have to trust, at least a little bit, that their intentions are good. When they come up with valid answers, and I don't mean just emotional bullshit like, oh, it causes centralization or some shit like that, although there are some things that you can say that about. But do they back up the claim? People that say things like, bigger blocks causes centralization. That's just bullshit. That's just bullshit. Just because you can't run it on your Raspberry doesn't mean it's quote-unquote centralized. You might actually have to dedicate a full-scale CPU to the project. Oh my goodness, it might actually cost you something to stand up for your principles. Heaven forbid. That's part of cryptocurrencies that I think a lot of people ignore. That your investment should mean something not only in the price of the coin, but also the function of the coin. The constitution of the communities around the coin. If you want to include yourself in those, then by golly, step up to the plate, make some comments, ask some questions. That's how you find shit out, kids. Because a lot of times other people have the same questions that you do. There are no stupid questions in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. And yes, you will get flamed. Some people will talk shit to you, but you know what? Get over it. There are much worse things that can happen. You could give your information all the way down to your bank routing number, your physical address, your social security number, your phone number, your physical address, your pictures, your signature, copies of official data, like your license, your driver's license. You could be giving all of those to an illegitimate scammer such as Quadriga CX that got away with it for years. These people were fucking identity thieves. If there was anybody doing any serious investigation into the background of it, it would not have ended how it did. But I'll tell you what, there was probably some sort of investigation going on behind the scenes because maybe somebody was a little bit slow in getting their money from Quadriga or something like that. There was a public complaint. There was investigations going on, and so they made plans for their exit. I would be willing to bet that there is some sort of litigation on a docket for some court somewhere revolving around the individuals or the organization of Quadriga CX that predates the death of their CEO. Because basically, that's like the time you want to do your exit is when you get wind that you're going to be called into court, you're going to get a subpoena, you're going to get cease and desist orders, whatever. That's the time to pull the plug and run, if in fact you're a scammer. But, if you can actually answer for your investments in the way that you've organized your funds and whatnot, then, it's not something you actually do. You don't pull the plug on a legitimate project. But anyway, there's a wide variety of warning signs, and one of the initial ones, of course, is always a promised return. If anybody, and I don't give a fuck if we're talking about the Federal Reserve, if Jerome Powell comes up to you and says, invest in this coin and you will make 40% per annum, you flip that motherfucker off. You tell him to go fuck himself because he just wants to steal your money. Promises, if they're saying yes, this is going to happen this way, they are fucking lying. I keep telling you people this, but I don't know, I guess my listener base isn't big enough yet that people just aren't hearing it. Okay, that there are people that just want to steal your money. Okay, and like I said, I don't care if they used to work for Goldman Sachs or, there's a reason they no longer work at Goldman Sachs, and it's not usually because they're good at their job. I mean, we have like Blythe Masters. She was at Goldman Sachs or one of these other fucking things for years, like 15 years or some shit like that. She comes into crypto. She's here like 2 years, 3 years as a quote unquote influencer, and then she bails. It's kind of obvious to me that there are backroom deals going on where people are making promises that they cannot possibly fulfill on. Anybody who's made significant like investments in the idea of Ethereum switching over to POS, they're looking at themselves going, what the fuck, man? These people promised me this shit was going to happen back in like February of 2017. What the fuck? You can't make those promises. This is an ever-moving terrain. People that are trying to bank on Lightning Network and blockchain and all that other bullshit and your side chain, you guys are going to end up getting burned. There's going to be attacks. There always is. And the more money you put behind something, the easier or the more motivation there is to attack it. And of course, that's not the only reason that people attack things. But it is one of the big ones. It is one of the big reasons that motivates people to try and cheat is they can't make enough money doing a legitimate enterprise according to their game plan. They need to cheat in order to make it worthwhile. So that's one of the reasons I cast that weird pall with regard to the story we were talking about earlier with, what was that, Atriax or something like that. FBI, blah, blah, blah. Researcher assaulted by vendor after disclosing vulnerability, the first story that we opened up with. There's behaviors that animals exhibit, okay? An entity that actually intends to fulfill on their promises to their customers and stuff, when notified about significant vulnerabilities that endanger not only them, but all of their customers, all of their clients. If they're actually intent on fulfilling the promises that they make to their customers and the trust that their customers place in them, they immediately snap to action with regard to trying to resolve it. But more importantly, when they initially start up, they don't do things like farm out their labor, their coding to India. They usually come to the table with a functioning project. This is another warning sign. If they do not have a demonstrable, like a test net or a hardware prototype, something that shows that they spent the last 2 years developing the fucking thing, you just tell them to go fuck off. Because all they got is a fucking idea. I mean, you might as well be going up to a Hollywood producer, no script in hand, and saying, hey man, I got this idea. You should give me a job and we'll make a lot of money. Because it's tantamount to that. And it's easy enough to get away with in a new, I don't know, Bitcoin is still new. Cryptocurrency is still relatively new. But a new concept like that, it's easy enough to lose people in a bunch of technical jargon and overcomplicated, schematics of what your software or hardware does. What your idea actually intends to achieve. It's really easy to do that. That's why there are market buzzwords, to cover a process that you don't necessarily want to fully explain, because if you did, they would catch on that there's some sort of fraud involved, and they would tell you, go fuck off. And it's the same thing with overly complicated white papers. If you've got a white paper that's over 10 pages, you're wasting your investors' time. It should not be that technical. It's a white paper. It's supposed to be conceptual. I mean, and not just like, conceptual in that you don't actually have a project. I mean that it should be easily digestible. It should not be overly technical. It should do a lot to explain the function of the intended project and who you're exactly trying to serve and how. But not so much that, I'm losing myself in your mathematics and your fucking diagrams, and it doesn't need to be that complex. The entire Bitcoin white paper is less than 10 pages. And a good deal of it is pictures, and it's double spaced. So, I mean, it's not a whole lot of data. But it fully explains what Bitcoin is. It fully explains exactly how Bitcoin is supposed to work. And who it's meant to service, and how it's meant to service them. These are critical pieces of information when you're trying to decide what kind of cryptocurrency you want to invest in. Exactly what are they trying to achieve? How are they trying to achieve it? Are there any existing projects that are serving this? How exactly are they operating right now? But again, if these people do not have a test net that shows it in operation, or a fucking live coin, if we're talking about a cryptocurrency, a live fucking coin, that's what they should be able to show you. If they can't show you that, they're wasting your time and your money. It's like if Verge goes to, MindGeek or any of the other vendors out there and pitches something to them, they can point at the big chart and say, look, here we are for year 4 in operation, where our network has been live and servicing our users. That's something to show for it. Here's our wallets. Here's our GitHub. Here's all the media that people have put out showing how to use our stuff. Here's our here's our black paper, versions 1 through 5. That's something to show for action. If somebody doesn't have that to show you, or at least the seed of it, here's our blockchain, this is our miners, this is our mining pool, this is our IRC chan, this is our GitHub. These are basic things. If they can't show you that, wasting your time, wasting your money. They got big question marks. Oh yeah, you can do this and you can do that and you can do this and you can do that, and no indication of the legality of these processes and how they are to be carried out, or what kind of liability you as a user or participant, miner, exchange, are undertaking with it. Again, these people are out to steal your motherfucking money. Watch out for your own bunghole, man, because the fact of the matter is that nobody can do it other than you. The feds, they can want to. They can even draw up laws to be able to prosecute people in the event that they rip you off. However, the ability to fulfill on that is a matter of question. And so then it's a matter of determining what level of risk you're willing to undertake. But of course, in order to properly assess that, you need to be properly educated on what you're getting into. That's why I suggest to everybody who decides that they want to try their hand at cryptocurrencies to start at the beginning, the Bitcoin white paper. It's great for establishing expectations for what this technology is intended to do, how it's intended to do it, who it's intended to serve, and how exactly it is it intends to serve them. We have the advantage there on Bitcoin of having 10 years of operation. So we've had an opportunity to see how a lot of shit works and how a lot of shit doesn't work. That in itself is probably the greatest asset that cryptocurrencies have. You don't have this level of transparency with your Visa card. You certainly don't have it with your bank account, or your bank account like the bank that's in charge of your bank account. To find anything out like this, you actually have to really deeply investigate, and even then you're probably only going to get information that's probably good via circa 2015 or some shit like that. Certainly not current. I can tell you this, there are certain banks out there that are utilizing this technology, because I can tell that by the way that my transactions have gone from one exchange account to another exchange account to my bank account. When I've seen how fast those transfer, and especially the last leg of that from the exchange to my bank account, that's the one I'm really watching, because I've had that process take 9 days and I've had it take 9 hours. And that's just been since, 2016? Yeah. So since 2016, it has gotten progressively faster. The last time, I swear, it was less than 24 hours. And I want to say it was like closer to 9 or 10, because it was like the next day the shit was available. I'm like, whoa! Glory be! It's getting through! They're using it. So yeah, the people that talk about, are institutional investors going to get into cryptocurrencies? Fuck, man. They're already here, baby. They've been creeping in since about 2013, 2014, if not earlier than that. I think when I first heard about any kind of institutional investment, it was back in 2012, actually. So, the fantasy that they don't know what's going on here and they don't know how to participate. Bullshit. They're not interested. Bullshit. They're up to their ass in it. I mean, they're not called Goldman Sachs and Chase Manhattan or J.P. Morgan Chase on their face. At least not most of their projects. If you study these groups, look up their name, J.P. Morgan Chase and Bitcoin. You're going to get a wide variety of responses, but you are going to see that they are invested either directly in Bitcoin mining or in some exchange or some wallet service, so on, so on, so on. They're buried underneath as initial investors or continued investors in various projects. I'll give you a good example, like Square. Everybody talks about how, Jack Dorsey's all into Square and all this other shit, right? Okay, well, if you go back in time, Square itself is, I want to say they have money from it's one of the bigs. It was one of those three. It was either J.P. Morgan Chase, what do you call them? Goldman Sachs, or there was one other one, a real big one. But they're all involved in like a digital something group, or digital investment group, or digital something group. The organization that owns CoinDesk. They have a little disclosure at the bottom of a lot of their articles that they're owned by DCG, Well, DCG is invested in like, I don't know how many cryptocurrency companies, but a lot of them. And then you have like R3. R3 is an organization including Goldman Sachs and several other entities from the legacy finance space. So again, the idea that these institutional investors aren't already heavily involved in cryptocurrencies is just fucking silly. It's just fucking silly. Just because you aren't seeing some massive spike and you aren't seeing Bitcoin at $40,000 a piece does not mean that Goldman Sachs doesn't have his hand straight up to his fucking elbow up Bitcoin's ass. Because he does. He does. I mean, we're talking about entities that would just as easily slip Bitcoin on like a glove as they do their current payment processing services and the infrastructure that they use for that. They gladly fire thousands of fucking people, put it all on a quote-unquote blockchain, and call it all good. You know, that's one of the reasons why I warn against Lightning Network, because as far as I can tell, it's setting up infrastructure, or at least beta testing software infrastructure for managing a global payment system that you are not going to be involved in. You're going to bump your fucking node right off. Either that or they'll just ignore it because it's not processing transactions with their little proprietary code letting them know that you're a licensed operator under them. You know, we heard about a flurry of patents in 2017, actually 2016 through 2018. There's a shit ton of patents being made by, you know, PayPal, Chase, all of these organizations. What do you think they were patenting? I fucking read, whose patent was that? MasterCard's patent for their idea for their payment system and bank account system that's going to consist of fractional Bitcoin, or actually they said fractional cryptocurrency, not necessarily Bitcoin. So for all we know, we're talking about fractional Ripple, fractional fiat currency, and a proprietary element that would be included in all of their transactions. As far as I'm concerned, the proprietary element is to be able to tell whether or not they're receiving it from one of their owned or compromised systems, i.e. not yours. And also to determine whether or not the transaction is theirs. If it's not, then all of their nodes just fucking ignore it. It doesn't get routed through them. And so when all these people that think, oh yeah, I'm going to get rich on transaction fees. No, you're not. No, you're not. The custodial wallet that's being used by the user is not going to interact with your silly node. It may now, but the thing is more or less in a prototype stage, a test stage at this point. It's one of the reasons why you're not seeing a significant amount of enforcement action going on. It's not because it doesn't violate all kinds of money transmitter and custodian laws already in existent and previously existent to even Bitcoin. It's just that they haven't gotten around to busting your ass yet. You know, you don't have enough money on your Lightning Network node to worry about. The average node out there has about $80 worth of Bitcoin on it. That's not enough to go after. But there's going to be a time when that Bitcoin on your node is worth a hell of a lot more money. And then it'll be worth it to go after you. Or at least bump you off the network. And as with that, I want to throw back down into some music. And where to go? Where to go? Let's see. Well, I got some Anthrax right in front of me here. And so, which song? It's all just a matter of song. There's so many good ones out there. All of Them Thieves by Anthrax here on Coin Metal. And that was Crowbar with Like Broken Glass. That whole album, by the way, is fucking awesome. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Not even the FBI. Thank you again for listening. Until Friday, you'll be able to find me in the on Twitter, on Facebook, on Telegram, and also on Discord under the Verge Currency chat room. And as far as our last dance is concerned, I haven't really picked one out. And let's see, we've got about 4 and change here. Gosh, this is actually going to require some thought. Man, I played that one way too much. Did we hit up some Exodus today already? Yeah, okay. Got to check and verify. Fear Factory. We haven't played anything by Fear Factory today. I usually like to balance it all out, And as far as The Last Dance, let's go ahead and throw down a little Archetype by Fear Factory here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening.